remember being in 6th grade with a teacher named Mr. Cassidy, who was explaining to us social systems. And he explained that communism, with a small c, meant that everything was shared in common and that all resources were divvied up equally. And I thought this seemed quite reasonable. In fact, it seemed like a very an important idea. And I remember I was a bright child and something of a teacher's pet, and Mr. Cassidy was fond of me. After school one day, wanting to ask Mr. Cassidy about communism, and he wasn't in, and I wrote on the blackboard, "I don't see what's so wrong about communism, Mr. Cassidy," and I name. And I don't remember exactly what happened, but I remember there was an enormous fuss about this, whether it was that night or the next day, from other teachers, from Mr. Cassidy, from my classmates, there was a sense as though I had written, God is dead on the blackboard. And because communism wasn't small c to anybody, it was capital C. Now, when that happened, I felt ashamed. I didn't feel at the time angry that I had not been able to make a free intellectual inquiry. But it is a tiny example of the kind of narrowness of intellectual horizon that did exist. Now, I can speak from personal experience that probably one of the great liberating changes of the 60s and later was, of course, the beginning of a sense of the need to expand women's horizons and what eventually became the women's movement. It was a persistent part of my growing up in the 50s that as a bright girl, I felt it necessary always to mask, disguise, hide, and make up for the fact that I was smart. I was very anxious to be liked, to be popular, to have boyfriends. This meant that I had to act dumb. I had to pretend not to be as smart as I was. At the same time, I was achievement-oriented, as today's sociological phrase would have it. And so I wanted to do well, and I was caught between wanting, let's say, to get 100% on my paper, and, on the other hand, not to be one of those girls who was known as a brain, and the boys didn't take out.